our choose topic election in Malaysia. Our member group is MARYLYIANA, it's me, NURUL Azrin binti Arki, Andrew Anna MAJID, VIVIANA Angelia, and HUIFENSHA SANZEL. So we continue with our presentation on election in Malaysia. Let's go!
For introduction, Malaysia practiced parliamentary democracy with a constitutional monarchy. His Majesty the King is the head of state. Malaysia gained independence in 1957 and has since returned a constitutional monarchy. The idea behind this system is that the people should elect their own representative to establish the government. People have the chance to express their preferences for the competing candidates or political parties through election. It also allows the populace of change to choose new leader of parties that they believe are more appropriate. The Parliament of Malaysia, consisting of the Senate and House of Representatives, held its first meeting on September 11, 1959. A general election is held every 5 years to elect members of the House of Representatives. Parties with the most elected members can form a federal government to rule the country. Historical background of the Malaysian Parliament. The Parliament of Malaysia represented the democratic structure of the government and reflect the people's aspiration through its elected representatives. The first general election after independence was held on September 11 at Tunku Abdul Rahman Hall, Kuala Lumpur. On September 16, 1963, Malaysia was formed when Sabah, Sarawak and Singapore agreed to be part of Malaysia. Since then, the Parliament of the Federation of Malaya is known as the Parliament of Malaysia. The date also marked another historical event when the Parliament session was held in its own new building. The Parliament building has a main building, a tower building and a banquet building. The Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman presented the royal address to His Majesty the King Tuanku Abdul Rahman Ibni Tuanku Muhammad during the opening of Parliament on September 11, 1959. She is present with Her Majesty the Queen Tuanku Kursia Tunku Besar Burhanuddin. In 1963, when Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak and Singapore merged to form Malaysia, the Malayan Parliament was adopted or used as the Parliament of Malaysia. Both Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara were expanded to include representatives from the new state. When Singapore seceded from Malaysia in 1965, it chose to be represented in the Parliament of Malaysia. Significant change regarding the composition of Dewan Negara occurred during this period. History of the establishment of election. Elections are contested the highest stake in national politics, and the electoral system is a set of predetermined rules for conducting election and determining their outcome. The Malaysian Election Commission was established on September 4, 1957 in accordance with Article 114 of the Federal Constitution. The Election Commission was comprised of only one chairman and 2 members. The chairman of the Election Commission was Yang Berbahagia Datuk Mustafa Al-Bakri bin Haji Hassan, while the members were Mr. Lee Ew Boon and Mr. Dit Singh. The Electoral Commission main function include conducting a study and redelineation of the parliamentary and state electoral division every not less than 8 years after the completion of the previous study and redelineation, carrying out voter registration and reviewing the voter register, conducting general election for Dewan Rakyat and State Legislative Assembly. The Election Commission policy is to preserve, supervise and maintain the democratic process in this country through free and fair election.
There was 2 types of election. First is general election. General election is held to elect councillors simultaneously. And second is by election. By election is when there is vacancy seat in any constituency of the parliament.
Procedure and recruitment on election in Malaysia. Okay, for the first procedure for election in Malaysia is announce the dissolution of parliament, which is the election must be held 16 days in West Malaysia and 19 days in East Malaysia, which is in Sabah and Sarawak. Okay, the next procedure is the candidates for election must sign up for registration. That means candidate nomination process. Okay, the next procedure is the political party will therefore launch a campaign, which means the party their poster, the leaflet, door-to-door campaign and lateral to other society. Okay. On the election day, within the voting place on the election day, no one candidate campaigning in permit. So that's means the YB or candidate for election cannot do any campaign on election day. The requirement for election is the Malaysian national must be 18 years old of age and older must register with the election commission. For the voting booths are open and the results are counted after the election held. Okay. The calculation of count will be entered in form 14, which will then be given to the managing official for the formal counting of vote. Okay, for the last procedure on election in Malaysia is the announcement of the election result. So, for the result, proclaim the candidate who received the majority of vote will be and shall affirm him as the representative of the people for the election area or division.
Candidate for election. Firstly, candidates deposit. In the candidates deposit in 2004, each candidate was required to provide a 5,000 ringgit deposit for cleaning up banners and poster after the election. Secondly, candidates nomination process. Qualification candidates are Malaysian citizens and residents in the Federation. Article 47 of the Federal Constitution prevents nomination, not be undischarged, and more. Qualification of the State Legislative Assembly elections is age not less than 21 years on the day of the nomination of the candidate, 18 years based on the provisions of the Federal Constitution. Thirdly, disqualification of candidates election. Person of unsound mind, undischarged bankrupts, anyone who holds a public office or for profit, anyone who fails to lodge a return of election expenses as required under the law. Fourth, privilege for candidates. Allowed to visit the following places: polling places or counting votes, the center counts centralized and cluster votes, the center for production, the opening and counting of postal votes, and the vote official submission center.
Point first is eligibility to be a voter. There are various qualifications to be a voter. Among them are citizens who have reached the age of 18 on the eligibility day. Next, a person who is resident in the constituency on the said qualifying date and is registered under the purview of any law relating to election. Second point is disqualified from voting. A person shall be disqualified from voting if, on the date of qualification, he is arrested as a lunatic or is serving a sentence of imprisonment, and before the date of qualification, he has been convicted of any offense. Third point is eligibility. People conduct early voting and vote by post. Some categories are eligible to conduct early voting by post. Among them are military personnel and their spouses, members of Royal Malaysian Police and spouses of the General Operation Force are required to participate in early voting day.
According to David Beetham, the principle that election in democratic countries should be free and fair is now widely accepted because there are international standards that provide free and fair criteria in electoral practice. The term free and fair election refers to predict genuine, clean, transparent, free and fair and competitive election in accordance with the principle of democracy, human rights and fundamental justice. Free election allow all citizens, including voters, parties, candidates and media, to enjoy all the fundamental rights.
In conclusion, Malaysia is a parliamentary democracy in a constitutional monarchy. Elections are able to help to prevent any fiction from monopolizing power. So, voters should choose representatives who will carry out their choice rather than make political decisions. However, because a good constitution and government are two components that determine freedom, election guarantee more individual freedom. That's all. Thank you. Bye.